This gentleman right here, alongside Brian Bradley, would be inducted into the third class for the Tampa Bay Lightning Hall of Fame. It's the one and only Rick Peckham, the Wedge Master, joining us on the program. Thanks so much for joining it. You're always going to be the Wedge Master to me when you sit in the press box next to our good pal Bobby the Chief Taylor. He'll turn to me. He goes, "You'll never understand the shot Ricky hit in the wind, into the wind." Like, if you ever need somebody to talk about your golf game, Chief will be that guy for you, buddy.
Jay, it's great to be on your show, and I must say this is all very difficult for me to live up to, because at some point someone's going to say, "All right, let's see you with a wedge and see what you can do." And of course, that's the time I'll scull it over the green. But nevertheless, thank you for the nice compliments. And yes, last night was just an extra special night, and what an honor to be named to go into the Lightning Hall of Fame with Brian Bradley, who, you know, his importance, I think, through the years, you might lose track as the Stanley Cups have piled up and Hall of Fame resumes and so forth. But Brian Bradley was pretty much the straw that stirred that drink in the early years, and of course, integral into getting that first playoff spot in 1996.
Rick, and you know this as good as anybody, he's really one of one, right? He's such a unique character. And I remember a couple of years ago, he's there and he's talking to somebody and he just yells out onto the ice during morning skate, "Hey, Cooch, working on the stuff I see." And then Cooch is like, "Yeah." he's like, "All right." And he just walks away. It's like, but that's Brad's, like, he doesn't even care. Like Kucherov, because Cooch gets in his zone, he's doing his stick handling thing, and Brad just yells over the boards and he looks up and he's like, "Yeah, it's Brad's, man." He's such a trip, and I'm still glad that he's around, being an ambassador for the team. He's such a good dude.
I think that's great for the Hall of Fame in its purpose, in terms of recognizing not only great players, great coaches, great management personnel, but also people who have served the organization, off the ice as well. Dave Andreychuk certainly has done that as a senior vice president for a long, long time to cap off, his great Hall of Fame playing career. And here's Brian Bradley, who for a long, long time now, over 20 years, has been affiliated with the team in a variety of departments, whether, helps out community relations. He's been big in sales and meeting with clients who, they want to get close to somebody who's been on the ice. Brian Bradley can tell the stories. He's been on the ice with Brett Hull and the greats of the game from, the 80s and early 90s and mid 90s. But just to have someone of that resume involved with the Hall of Fame, I think is tremendous.
Rick, take us through the when you found out that you were going to be inducted into the Lightning Hall of Fame.
Well, you have to go back a couple of weeks because, believe it or not, and this is going to sound very self-serving, I'm on the committee. But I didn't vote for myself. No, I didn't. And I wasn't, slipping $20 bills under the table at the committee meetings to people to vote for me or anything like that. I'm really thrilled to have sat in on that Zoom call when all the members of the committee got together. And Brian Briesman, of course, marketing and PR vice president, announced that Brad's and I would be going in. And truly, I was sitting right here in the seat and speechless. And, there was no one else in the room, unlike our in-person meetings and so forth. And it was stunning that this was going to happen. And what an honor. And really, you look back over being associated here in Tampa, it's almost 30 years for myself and my family. And it's just been such a life-changing experience to come here, have the opportunity, live in Florida, live in the Tampa Bay area, be part of all the growth and great things happening here with Jeff Vinik buying the team in 2010 and all that he's done away from hockey, and be a part of just an incredible era of hockey. I don't care if you're talking about the Lightning or Tampa Bay, you're talking National Hockey League. I mean, you look back, starting in really 2014 when the team made the playoffs to start the John Cooper run. It's, there's a lot of teams that be looking hard at that length of time, that era, and just shaking their heads like, wow, what a great success story.
Yeah, it's a great point that you bring up, because I feel like there's a lot of teams that the National Hockey League that would take the amount of success that the Lightning have had in the last decade, they take that over 50 years, right? I mean, to
Yes.
win that many cups and to be able to be that competitive year in and year out. I want to go back to when you first found out that you were going to be one of the voices of the Tampa Bay Lightning. Who reached out to you? How did that whole thing come together? Was our good friend, the crazy man, as I call him, Phil Esposito, involved in that whole process?
I think he was, you know, in the background of that whole thing. I didn't know Phil well. I'd met him just basically through interviews in my role in the media. Prior to that, I had worked with a very good friend of his and a longtime teammate, Jerry Cheevers, announcing Hartford Whaler games. Jerry, of course, the Hall of Fame goaltender. And you know, Jerry and Phil would talk every once in a while. Well, as it worked out, I had been in Hartford for 11 years, and new ownership brought some new ideas in, and Jerry saw the handwriting on the wall. He went back to the Bruins as a scout. I saw the handwriting on the wall, took a shorter contract to, you know, move on and try to find another opportunity, which fortunately came up late in the summer as John Kelly, the original TV voice of the Lightning, was selected to be the Colorado Avalanche coach. Keep in mind that team was just moving from Quebec as the Nordiques to now the Colorado Avalanche. And I got a call one Saturday afternoon from a radio producer, God bless his soul, Joel Blumberg, worked in New York, and I knew him through my NHL contacts. He's calling me, he's producing a football game, and he calls me at halftime. He says, "Hey, I hear the Tampa Bay job's open. John Kelly got the Colorado job." So I make a quick call. I knew Jerry Halper, who at the time was the PR vice president from the original management crew that Phil had. And I knew Jerry from when he was in Buffalo. I was in Rochester. We were the farm team and so forth. And that kind of got the things moving internally with Phil and so forth. And at the last minute, here I am in Tampa, and it's been, you know, a wonderful ride ever since.
Yeah, and you know, Phil and I have gotten pretty close over the last 10 years. It's usually him just making fun of my shoes more than anything else. You know that. uh, but just, and it's funny because we'll be up in the press box and he'll be talking with these like legends of the game, and they'll be talking to him about the most serious things. And oh, remember
Yeah.
this? And he'll be like, "Look at this guy over here with his shoes." And they just, you know, I'm the butt of the joke for Phil Esposito. That's what my life has come into, is to be the butt of his jokes. But what are some of the memories that you have with Phil? Because I mean, it's still crazy to think like he's one of the greatest players to ever adorn a pair of hockey skates. Just what are some of your favorite memories of being in and, you know, with and around him over the years?
Well, very quickly, Jay, I became a hockey fan when the big bad Bruins were coming into prominence in the early 70s. And so I was a huge fan of Phil, Bobby Orr, especially Jerry Cheevers, all the guys. And so to meet him just a few years later in my college days at Kent State University in Ohio, for 2 years, the NHL relocated the California Golden Seals to Cleveland, and they were known as the Barons before that franchise merged with the Minnesota North Stars and, you know, joined that organization. In any case, I'm working college radio, come up, cover the Barons home games, and the Rangers are in town with Phil. And I'm talking to Phil about their schedule. I knew they had a tough trip, and you know, we're talking about how tough it is on the road and the team's tired and so forth. And he says, "You know what? We won 3 out of 4 so far, and I got to say we're a little bit lucky. And anybody who says you don't need luck in this game, they're full of it." Okay, that's a typical Phil response, right?
Right.
Well, I work with an older broadcast prospect who has helped me put together my resume tape to go out after this year and look for jobs. And doesn't he put at the end of the tape, Phil saying, "If you don't need luck, if you think you don't need luck in this game, you're full of it." That's the end of my demo tape. So Phil was right there from the beginning. And of course, just to get to know and be around him in the early years of the Lightning, when I came on board in 1995, 96, the opening of the Ice Palace. I was thinking of that last night with the fact that Brads and I were going to the Lightning Hall of Fame because Brian Bradley scored the first goal in the history of the building.
Right.
And I remember that game. I remember that goal vividly. And that's a huge memory for me to have through my years with the Lightning and on from there. I remember, we went to training camp in 1998, Vinny Lecavalier's first professional camp. And we were in Feldkirch, Austria for 10 days. Ended up at the end of that camp playing the Buffalo Sabres. That preseason game also marked the return of John Cullen, who had been out, obviously afflicted with cancer and had beaten cancer, had come back and become a player again. So there's a lot of stuff from that early years where Phil was still involved with the team that are fresh in my mind and very fond memories that I have.
Rick, what is something that you would say to a young play-by-play announcer that would help them in their journey along? I do some play-by-play stuff for USF, and I think some of the biggest things is like to let the game breathe a little bit. I think so many times people, they always want to feel like they have to interject something, but sometimes the crowd noise are just letting it. And mine's a little different because a lot of it is radio. But when I do some TV stuff, I really try to let the scene kind of sell itself for the most part. But especially for you, because you're also working with a partner, whether it was Chief or Brian Engblom. So what would you tell a young play-by-play guy as they're coming up through the ranks that would really help them kind of achieve what they want to achieve in the business?
Well, I've worked with 2 or 3 young broadcasters trying to break into pro hockey. They really love hockey. And I'm constantly telling them to review their work, tape everything that you do and listen back to it, because it's going to help you avoid mistakes in the future. It's going to help you develop your style. And as you listen to yourself or watch a videotape where you're doing the play-by-play, think of what the listener needs to know or the viewer needs to know as you go along through the play. It's not only Jay Recher has the puck and he's passing to Rick Peckham, maybe he's broken up. Hey, the pass was broken up at the line. Well, who did it? Be cognizant of what the viewer or the listener needs to know and just try to be on top of things. But, you bring up a great point, letting the game breathe, because I think what we see now and hear now is a lot of people falling into stories and storylines that they and the producers have figured out before a game actually unfolds. And, I think people really want to concentrate on the game as it's unfolding. So I think those are important things to remember.
Yeah, I think that's the balance, right? Because, Doc Emmerich was a guy that I think a lot of hockey fans, miss. But he would always it would be an interjection of some of these things, the way that he would say, pitchforks the puck into the zone. Like he'd use a different word to be able to use rather than just dump the puck in the zone. He'd have a short story, but he'd get in and he'd get out. And I've noticed that too, where it just seems like there's a narrative that goes into what the broadcast is going to be. And it seems to kind of override rather than just telling the story of the game. A lot of the times the game is the story in itself rather than what the narrative is supposed to be, right?
Right. I mean, the game isn't necessarily going to follow those storylines. So you have to let the game unfold and like you say, let the game breathe. Whenever, in all the years that I did games, whenever I would kind of drift into a story and try to embellish a particular play or a player's background or something like that, wouldn't you know, great shot on goal, big save, but something big in the game would happen and I'd end up looking like,
Yeah.
I got caught with my pants down, basically. You missed the play. And that's the last thing a play-by-play announcer wants to do.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Going back to your Hartford days, because I watched a lot of Hartford Whalers growing up in the Northeast. And who is your favorite player to either work with or to call their games up during your Whalers days?
Wow, that's a good question. That crew that the Whalers had in the mid to late 80s was a very good team. And whether it was a Hall of Famer like Ron Francis, who was the captain of the team, just one of the all-time nicest people you would ever want to meet, just a classy individual. He would certainly be up there. Joel Quenneville, who was, a real clubhouse leader and just a fun guy to be around. Kevin Dineen, Dean Evison, who's still involved in the game, Dave Tippett, all these guys. And I think somebody came up with a great fact with the number. It was like 15 members of the team from, in a 3-year stretch in the mid to late 80s were present in the game as a coach, as a manager, in any type of role, which really kind of demonstrated their mental acuity in terms of their hockey knowledge and hockey smarts, because they were still involved in the game. They had some characters like Ulf Samuelsson, and you had Ray Ferraro, who I could tell right from his rookie year, this guy could be a sportscaster because he followed all sports. He wanted to talk Red Sox all the time because he was a big Sox fan. I guess that's a natural outgrowth from growing up in Trail, British Columbia. Like, I don't see the connection there, but Ray was a great guy to be around. It was just a dressing room full of very interesting characters who were a lot of fun to be around.
Come on, you don't know there's a or a Carl Yastrzemski fan club in Trail, British Columbia, Rick? Before I get you out here, I want to ask you one question. If you had to put together a foursome from your hockey travels, so it could be hockey broadcasters, hockey players, hockey coaches, you and 3 people. Now, you could put the team together to either have a great time or to like win a scramble or something like that. That is up to you. But give me 3 people through your hockey career that you would decide to play with in a foursome.
Well, I would have to start with Chief locally for many reasons. Number one, he's a lot of fun on the golf course. If you've ever played golf with him, Jay, you'd know. Never a dull moment. Number two, I don't think I'm telling tales out of school that, Chief is 70 or older, which, as you know, in golf, you can play the forward tees if you're in a scramble. He absolutely blisters the ball. I mean, his drives are as far now as people 20 years younger than him. So you'd want Chief on the team for many reasons. I'd want Jerry Cheevers on the team because he was known as the first money goalie, because when the chips were down, he'd get the big save. They won 2 Stanley Cups with Jerry backstopping the Bruins. So at crunch time, if there was money on the line, Jerry was going to come up with a big shot. And once again, you're not going to find a more entertaining person to play golf with than Jerry Cheevers. Absolutely 9 years with him. We had so much fun, and I have so many stories from those days. Not necessarily our stories, but stories that he told about, the kind of the gas house gang of that era for sure. But Cheesy would have to be in that foursome as well. And boy, kind of stumped here on the third one. Brian Engblom's a lot of fun to play with, and he really works on his game too. So I mean, there's a guy that we enjoyed our 5 years together in the booth, and he's gone on and done very well since with Dave Randorf and just keeps rolling. I think Brian would be a guy we'd throw in there too.
So there's your foursome: Rick Peckham,
Yes.
Bobby Chief Taylor, Jerry Cheevers, and Brian Engblom. That is an incredible foursome. Rick, thank you so much for joining me today, my friend. I'm so happy for you. Well deserved. Tampa Bay Lightning Hall of Famer to join your Hall of Fame induction for the Hockey Hall of Fame as well. It couldn't happen to a better person, my friend. One of the true voices of the Tampa Bay Lightning and just an all-around fantastic individual. God bless you, my friend. Thank you so much, and congratulations again. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, Jay, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's great to see you when I do come to the press box and venture up there from the seats. But it's been an honor and such a pleasure all these years representing the Lightning now in retirement, but all those years in the booth. And I'm very, very proud to be going into the Lightning Hall of Fame. Thank you.
You got it, pal. Thank you so much. And hit him straight, my friend.
All right.